Yeah, you're absolutely right, and his he really has been a joy to watch. I mean you're exactly right. And just in terms of how polished he is for being a freshman. I mean he is, he runs some of the crispest, best routes you'll see. He almost never drops a ball if it's catchable at all. He's typically going to catch it, and he's got great hands. He runs great routes. I mean obviously he doesn't have the straight line speed of a guy like Sean Price. He's not 6'5" like Sean Price, but he runs incredible routes. And I think Matt Klein is a good comparison in terms of how reliable his hands are and how good his routes are. But I think he's a more gifted athlete than Matt was, and he's also 6'1", 190 pounds, so he's not a small kid himself. And it's Southern Conference and FCS in general, defensive coordinators are going to have nightmares about this team for a couple of years because we have two really big, really physical, really talented receivers there on the outside that they've got to deal with for 3 more years. And it was a great moment for him. It was a great moment for the team, and I think that really, both for the Georgia Southern team, the Georgia Southern fans, as well as for the App team and the App fans there at the game. I think that catch and then that blocked field goal at the end of the first half is when it really put the thought into everybody's mind that App might come down here and beat us. And so I think that was just such a huge momentum play for us.
Yes, that was a very low kick. It was right in front of the ASU section of fans that were down there, and to me, there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to miss the kick because it just seemed like one of those things that, for some reason, I just thought it's either going to be a low kick or he's just going to hit it wrong, and he obviously kicked it low right into, I can't think of who he kicked it into, but he kicked it right into his chest. So he didn't even have to jump that high to block it, and I actually had one Georgia Southern fan saying, well, he would have missed it anyway, even if you hadn't blocked it. So that was kind of that mindset of the Georgia Southern fan of, oh no, here comes our kicker again, because he missed 2 field goals that cost him the win at Citadel. And that was another thing their fans complained about after the game. They saying, well, we're 3 missed field goals away from being undefeated. And that's sort of true, but they're also 2 more field goals away from having a couple more losses. That the Chattanooga game that they won, they could have missed a field goal and lost that game, and I think the Elon game that they won by a field goal.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They won by 3 against Elon, and I really felt bad for Hanks, the kid that was the kicker at Georgia Southern. I mean, obviously being a kicker is a pretty thankless job. If you do your job and you make your field goals, then it's nobody really talks about it. But if you have a day like he had, you're the GOAT. You're the reason they lost. But the reason they won by 3. He kicked a field goal at Chattanooga that sent them into overtime and gave them a chance to win that game. So it's not like he's done nothing for them all year. He has been inconsistent. I do think they need to upgrade that position, but at the same time, he's also done some things for them this year. So just as much as they might be a couple missed field goals away from being undefeated, it's exactly what you said. They're also, had he not made a couple of field goals for him, it's entirely possible that they could be sitting with 4 losses right now and looking at a 6-5 finish when they, unless they pull off a miracle against Georgia. So, it goes both ways. I feel for the kid. It was a terrible game for him, obviously. 2 missed field goals. One of them was blocked. One of them was missed really badly. So, I mean, it was a rough game for him, but, that's just kind of the way these things go. And it kept going into the second half there a little bit. When he, I felt like that third field goal, he kind of missed it before he even attempted it. It was kind of in his head at that point. But the whole tone of the game changed there in the second half after 700 yards of offense and 52 points. We saw just over 300 yards of offense total between the two teams and 14 points in the second half. So, really stepped it up. Georgia Southern scored on their opening possession to go up 28-24. Izzy Ute ran in from 12 yards out, and then they continued. Alex Hanks' tough day just continued after that. He missed a field goal that would have put him ahead by 7, and then Fortunately, Appalachian hadn't forced a punt all day. We then forced three straight three and outs, and on the
Yes, that
second
was
one,
incredible.
it was. It seems like it took us 11 quarters, but we finally figured out how to play option defense, and
Yeah.
it got them there on three consecutive drives, and then Tony Washington just made an incredible catch there in the back of the end zone to put us up 31-28. And then one more three and out, and Troy Sanders capped it off with interception. And it was really fitting that nobody but Troy Sanders would have come away with that last interception.
Yes, I rewatched the game online, and Troy Sanders, they were praising him on the ESPN online broadcast, and rightfully so, because he was making some of those tackles on some of those option pitches, and again, I believe that's part of the reason why Georgia Southern was able to be as effective in the passing game as they were, as we had to put 8 guys in the box, we had to play man to man.
So either actually we couldn't afford to have either one of our safeties sitting back. We kind of had to leave our receivers on, or excuse me, leave our corners on an island with their receivers, and they didn't have much help back there. But fortunately, with the exception of a couple of big plays, they did all right. Didn't give up any passing touchdowns. But having Troy Sanders up there really helped us limiting the run game. He earned himself Southern Conference Defensive Player of the Week, had 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and then that interception that really sealed the deal. And then as far as the other individual performances for that game, Jamal Jackson set a new career high, 383 yards, completed 21 of 34 passes, 3 touchdowns, most importantly, no turnovers. And
Yes.
it was really impressive with the incredible front seven that Georgia Southern has. For him to put up those kind of numbers, have that kind of day, basically on one leg, was pretty incredible. And then of course Sean Price, who just continues to amaze. We're really getting spoiled watching him play every week, just expecting him to go off. But he had 231 yards, he had a touchdown. He set up that Stephen Miller touchdown. He was one foot away from having 2 touchdowns on the day, but he still just had a monster day. And then Stephen Miller himself, he wasn't nearly as active as he was in most of the games. We really used the pass to set up the run, but he was effective when we asked him to. He had 60 yards on only 9 carries, had that 1 yard touchdown, had a couple catches out of the backfield as well. And then we mentioned Troy Sanders just had a monster day, and then Jeremy Kimbrough and Carl Anderson each had 10 tackles, and Ronald Blair at the defensive end spot. He always seems to play well against option teams. He came through with 9 tackles again, and he just always seemed to be disrupting the front line. And coming through in the second half, it really seemed like our defensive line seemed to wear them down a little bit. I saw Burns made a couple of plays there that were really big, getting pressure. He forced a bad pitch once or twice. That made them pitch it before they wanted to, and it was it was really a great fourth quarter performance. They just lock them down and dominate the line of scrimmage there in the fourth quarter.
Yes, I will also jump in on saying the defense played pretty 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 good in that fourth quarter, and it's not typical against these option teams. They usually do better early in the game. 38 minutes of the game, and that's the first, I'd say, 25 plus minutes.
got killed in the time of possession. Our defense was on the field, 37, 38 minutes. I mean, they just dominated time of possession, and to me, I think that really gives cause to give a big congratulations, a big shout out to Kareem Young, the strength and conditioning coach, because obviously that team is in great shape. I mean, it was hot, and we are very, very thin on defense. If you look, at the stats after the game for the number of guys that had tackles for App versus the number of guys that had tackles for Georgia Southern, we weren't rotating nearly as many guys out. Most of those kids were playing on special teams as well, and they played their best football in the fourth quarter, which just says so much about the conditioning of a team that's as thin as we are. So, I mean, that's really, really incredible. And as we alluded to earlier, the win, both our win over Georgia Southern combined with Sanford's win over Wofford, really opened things up in the Southern Conference.